Cinderella Part II. After everyone had left the house, Cinderella went out to her mother's grave under the hazel tree and cried, "Shiver and shake, dear little tree, gold and silver shower on me." Then the bird threw down to her a gold and silver robe and a pair of slippers embroidered with silk and silver. With all speed, she put on the robe and went to the feast. But her stepsisters and their mother did not recognize her. They supposed that she was some foreign princess. So beautiful did she appear in her golden dress. They never gave a thought to Cinderella, but imagined that she was sitting at home in the dirt, picking the lentils out of the cinders. The prince came up to the stranger, took her by the hand, and danced with her. In fact, he would not dance with anyone else, and never let go of her hand. If anyone came up to ask her to dance, he said, "This is my partner." She danced until nightfall, and then wanted to go home. But the prince said, "I will go with you and escort you." He wanted to see to whom the beautiful maiden belonged, but she slipped out of his way and sprang into the pigeon house. Then the prince waited till her father came, and told him that the unknown maiden had vanished into the pigeon house. The old man thought, could it be Cinderella? And he had an axe brought to him, so that he might break down the pigeon house. But there was no one inside. When they went home, there lay Cinderella in her dirty clothes among the cinders, and a dismal oil lamp was burning in the chimney corner. For Cinderella had quietly jumped out of the pigeon house and had run back to the hazel tree. There she had taken off her beautiful clothes and laid them on the grave, and the bird had taken them away again. Then she had settled herself among the ashes on the hearth in her old gray frock. On the second day, when the festival was renewed, and her parents and stepsisters had started forth again, Cinderella went to the hazel tree and said, "Shiver and shake, dear little tree, gold and silver shower on me." Then the bird threw down a still more gorgeous robe than on the previous day, and when she appeared at the festival in this robe, everyone was astounded by her beauty. The king's son had waited till she came, and at once took her hand, and she danced with no one but him. When others came forward and invited her to dance, he said, "This is my partner." At nightfall she wished to leave, but the prince went after her, hoping to see into what house she went. But she sprang out into the garden behind the house. There stood a fine big tree on which the most delicious pears hung. She climbed up among the branches as nimbly as a squirrel, and the prince could not make out what had become of her. But he waited till her father came, and then said to him, "The unknown maiden has slipped away from me, and I think that she has jumped into the pear tree." The father thought, "Can it be Cinderella?" And he had the axe brought to cut down the tree, but there was no one in it. When they went home and looked into the kitchen, there lay Cinderella among the cinders as usual, for she had jumped down on the other side of the tree, taken back the beautiful clothes to the bird on the hazel tree, and put on her old gray frock. On the third day, when her parents and sisters had started, Cinderella went again to her mother's grave and said, "Shiver and shake, dear little tree, gold and silver shower on me." Then the bird threw down a dress which was so magnificent that no one had ever seen the like before, and the slippers were entirely of gold. When she appeared at the festival in this attire, they were all speechless with astonishment. The prince danced only with her, and if anyone else asked her to dance, he said, "This is my partner." When night fell and she wanted to leave, the prince was more desirous than ever to accompany her, but she darted away from him so quickly that he could not keep up with her. But the prince had used a stratagem, and had caused the steps to be covered with cobbler's wax. The consequence was that as the maiden sprang down them, her left slipper remained sticking there. The prince took it up. It was small and dainty, and made entirely of gold. The next morning he went with it to Cinderella's father, and said to him, "No other shall become my wife, but she whose foot this golden slipper fits." The two sisters were delighted at that, for they both had beautiful feet. The eldest went into the room intending to try on the slipper, and her mother stood beside her. But her great toe prevented her getting it on. Her foot was too long. Then her mother handed her a knife and said, "Cut off the toe. When you are queen, you won't have to walk any more." The girl cut off her toe, forced her foot into the slipper, stifled her pain, and went out to the prince. Then he took her up on his horse as his bride and rode away with her. However, they had to pass the grave on the way, and there sat the 2 doves on the hazel tree and cried, "Prithee look back, prithee look back, there's blood on the track, the shoe is too small, at home the true bride is waiting thy call." Then he looked at her foot and saw how the blood was streaming from it. So he turned his horse round and carried the false bride back to her home and said that she was not the right one. Then the second sister must try the shoe. She went into the room and succeeded in getting her toes into the shoe, but her heel was too big. Then her mother handed her a knife and said, "Cut a bit off your heel. When you are queen, you won't have to walk any more." The maiden cut a bit off her heel, forced her foot into the shoe, stifled her pain, and went out to the prince. Then he took her up on his horse as his bride and rode off with her. As they passed the grave, the 2 doves were sitting on the hazel tree crying, "Prithee look back, prithee look back, there's blood on the track, the shoe is too small, at home the true bride is waiting thy call." He looked down at her foot and saw that it was streaming with blood, and that there were dark red spots on her stockings. Then he turned his horse and brought the false bride back to her home. "This is not the right one either," he said. "Have you no other daughter?" "No," said the man. "There is only a daughter of my late wife's, a puny, stunted drudge, but she cannot possibly be the bride." The prince said that she must be sent for, but the mother answered, "Oh, no, she is much too dirty. She mustn't be seen on any account." He was absolutely determined, however, to have his way, and they were obliged to summon Cinderella. When she had washed her hands and face, she went up and curtsied to the prince, who handed her the golden slipper. Then she sat down on a bench, pulled off her wooden clog, and put on the slipper, which fitted to a nicety. And when she stood up and the prince looked into her face, he recognized the beautiful maiden that he had danced with and cried, "This is my true bride." The stepmother and the 2 sisters were dismayed and turned white with rage. But he took Cinderella on his horse and rode off with her. As they rode past the hazel tree, the 2 doves cried, "Prithee look back, prithee look back, no blood's on the track, the shoe's not too small, you carry the true bride home to your hall." And when they had said this, they both came flying down and settled on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right and one on the left, and they remained perched there. When the wedding was going to take place, the 2 false sisters came and wanted to carry favor with her and take part in her good fortune. As the bridal party was going to the church, the elder was on the right side, the younger on the left, and the doves picked out one of the eyes of each of them. Afterwards, when they were coming out of the church, the elder was on the left, the younger on the right, and the doves picked out the other eye of each of them. And so for their wickedness and falseness, they were punished with blindness for the rest of their days. The end.